Welcome everyone to the first CoSTAR Ideate Growth Lab and Residency Information Session. My name is Nicole Stewart-Rushworth. I'm the Enterprise and Commercialisation Producer at CoSTAR National Lab. Today we'll be taking you through an overview of the Ideate programme with a short presentation from our colleagues at the Real-Time and Screen Labs and Codebase. There'll be an opportunity to dig into any questions you have relating to the programme and the application process and any of the various offers available throughout the programme. Speaking today, we have Fiona Kilkelly, Head of Enterprise and Commercialisation at CoSTAR National Lab, Andrew McSwan, R&D Producer for CoSTAR Real-Time Lab, Simon Fraser, Enterprise Officer at Aberdeen University, Lindsay Campbell, Project Coordinator for CoSTAR Screen Lab, Shona Marsh, VP of Startup Programmes at Codebase, and Billy Franks, PhD student in Design Informatics with Codebase. We're also supported today by Kylie Bryant, Senior Producer at CoSTAR National Lab, who will be on hand to help with any questions and technical issues. Thank you again for joining this session, and I will hand over to Fiona. We've kind of covered some of the agenda already, so Fiona,
Brilliant.
Over to you.
Thanks a million. Welcome everyone. Thanks for taking time out over your lunchtime to join us. I thought we'd kick off with a brief reintroduction to CoSTAR Network and set the scene as to what the network is. CoSTAR Network is Arts and Humanity Research Council's 70 million plus investment into the future of screen and performance sectors in the UK. It's part of UKRI, and it's the largest investment being made to date by AHRC into this space. It's infrastructure funding. So what you see here on this slide are 5 labs, 5 parts of that infrastructure jigsaw puzzle. Each of the labs has a regional and sector specialism. So Foresight Lab in London, led by Goldsmiths and BFI, amongst others. Their focus is on capturing and disseminating evidence, knowledge, trends, and data. We have a Live Lab based in Wakefield, which is the University of York and Production Park, and they're looking at the future of live performance using virtual production. We have Screen Lab in Belfast, led by Ulster University and Studio Ulster and others, and their focus is on looking at developing knowledge around creative technology, real-time tech, and VP. And Real-Time Lab in Dundee, led by Aberdeen University at Waterside Studios and our partners Codebase. And they're really kind of working with world-leading games research and development and Edinburgh's AI expertise at the Institute of Edinburgh, Futures Institute at Edinburgh. And lastly, there's us. We're the National Lab. We're based at Buckinghamshire, Royal Holloway. We've got partners with Pinewood, Disguise, BT, and others. And the National Lab the National Lab is slightly different to the rest of the labs in that we run what we call access programs. And the access programs are two programs of work, which are the key gateways in and out of CoSTAR for industry. One of those is prototype and pilots, and that program supports companies to develop new IP via access to the CoSTAR Network technical infrastructure and research expertise, and there's a real focus on research and development in the creative sector under prototypes and pilots. Kylie's going to put a link in the chat now for you to find out a bit more about that program, because there's also a call that's live at the moment called New Frontiers for Live Performance that closes in about 15 days, I think. And then the second access program is the team you've got with you today. That's Nicole and I, and we're part of the enterprise and commercialization team. And our team, next slide there, Nicole, actually, our team focuses on building business growth, IP, commercialization, capacity and capabilities in UK businesses, innovating in the screen and performance sectors. And the foundation of the support we offer across all of our programs are basically providing companies with a long-term window of support through access to the CoSTAR Network Lab and facilities, access to the creative and technical and research expertise within those facilities. Wrapped around that, the business growth, IP development and commercialization expertise you need, and bespoke one-to-one expert mentorship and support throughout the duration of our program. And they're the key elements. That's you in the middle, by the way. That's companies with their own IP, new ideas that they want to develop. That's the support we're putting around you, and they're the kind of foundational elements across all our programs in E&C that we'll be rolling out within CoSTAR. So I am going to hand you back to Nicole, who let's get stuck into CoSTAR Ideate. It's the first program we've got launching this year. Stay with us, because the rest of the year we will have many more programs targeted at very different stages of company growth cycles. So we'll have more information of that over the coming months. But today it's all about CoSTAR Ideate. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Fiona. So the one that you're all here to hear about today, CoSTAR Ideate, Growth Lab and Residency. So we launched our open call last week on Tuesday, which was really exciting as our first enterprise and commercialization call. Ideate is a 5-month program with wraparound business support from our colleagues at Codebase. And then during the summer months of June, July, August, there'll be an opportunity to have a residency with our Network Labs teams, who you hear a little bit more from today. The kind of format of the program is that there'll be 24 companies selected, with 6 companies attached to each of the relevant labs. And the whole idea of Ideate is to kind of help early stage businesses as they grow and kind of create a sustainable foundation on which to grow their business off. And then with that R&D dedicated time in the Network Labs to be able to grow their programs, to grow their projects, sorry. The program takes no equity and there's no fees to apply, which is excellent. And there is a stipend as well to help support in-person activities. We will get a little bit more into kind of the schedule and the time commitments as well in a second. Fiona, shall I hand back over to you to talk a little bit more about who we'd like to see on our program? You're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So we're keeping a broadish view on this program in terms of the types of companies that this program is relevant for. We envisage the type of companies that would fit really well into Ideate are companies that might be pre-revenue or early revenue generating. You might have had 1, 2, multiple grants, Innovate UK grants, or support in your local regions to develop R&D. So have a slate of research and development projects, but haven't had time or the support or the capacity in your company to step back and go, right, what is it I want to do with my business long term? Where are my future markets? How can I exploit this IP further? How can I build a sustainable business? What's my long-term goal here, in addition to my capacity in my company to do R&D grants? What's my long-term market and what's my long-term value proposition? So companies also might be quite early stage in that you've committed to working on an idea of a really early stage product and development in the emerging and technology space and screen and performance, but haven't had access to the facilities to lower the barrier to entry and de-risk you experimenting in that space. Or you could be a company who's quite established in another field, say immersive technology, has built quite a profile, lots of assets, IP you want to exploit, but you want to experiment with that and some new research in relation to how the adoption of new technologies might be impacting the way that you work. Or simply companies might just require access to facilities and the people who can run those facilities to create an opportunity to test and try new ideas. We also imagine there may be some tech-based companies working in other areas that can bring what they're doing in to actually add and drive value within the creative industries. So broadly, quite broad, and I find it's easier to probably consider yourself in terms of where you are as a company right now and how much of a priority putting in place the foundations for a sustainable business longer term is needed in order to future-proof your company going forward. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you very much. So a little bit on the kind of timeline of the programme. So the open call is live now and closes on the 24th of March at 10 a.m. Once then we'll go through our assessment process and begin announcing and kind of contacting successful applicants from the 10th of April. I've got a slide with some of these dates at the end as well, and you can find them in the briefing pack on the website. Once we kind of get started with the actual programme itself, we will start at on the 6th of May, 6th and 7th of May in person at Production Park, just outside of Wakefield. And then we'll hand over to Codebase, who will be delivering on the first 5 weeks or so of the programme. And I'll hand over to Codebase in a second to talk about the content and the expectations for that time period. Once you're finished with Codebase, for then you will join us in the CoSTAR Network Labs for 3 months from June through to August. This is time for you to get to have mentorship, and I should say that mentorship as well is available throughout the whole programme. So there'll be Codebase mentorship and CoSTAR mentorship over the summer as well. This will take form of kind of specialist mentors related to your labs, as well as more kind of sector specialist mentors who will support the whole 24 companies who are selected. During the summer period with us, we'll also have some interesting masterclasses, which more information to come as the programme develops, as we tailor to the companies who are selected. And it'll be really exciting to have some really cool industry speakers who will be able to inform and give their wisdom to our lovely cohort. Once the summer is over, we'll hand back to Codebase for another couple of weeks before we wrap up with another in-person showcase event at the end of the programme. This is still developing as well. As I said, we'll tailor as we find out our cohort and as we see the applications that are coming in to ensure that the companies that are selected get the most out of the programme. And with that, I'll hand over to Shona from Codebase to talk a little bit about their part of the programme. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah, great. You're going to have to do the next slide, please, for me. Thank you. We've only got a few slides, so it should be quite straightforward. So thank you, everyone, for being on the call to find out more about this. We're really excited to be partnering with CoSTAR and the National Lab and the local labs, the network labs as well, to support in getting more tech businesses and businesses with core IP to market. That's sort of our bread and butter. So I'm going to explain a bit about what Codebase do, about the program that we've designed and developed in partnership with CoSTAR for you for the Ideate program, and then what that entails as well. So you can find out a bit more about what you'd actually be getting stuck into. So we class ourselves as an ecosystem builder organisation. We're based in Edinburgh, but we work nationally across the UK with different organisations to build better startup ecosystems. So that means working with startups and working with partners, the public sector, private sector, and other organisations to ensure that we're all pushing in the same direction to enable tech businesses to build a better economy for the UK. We connect founders and their teams with governments, local authorities, corporates, investors, and academia to increase the number of successful businesses. And so we do that in a number of ways, and one of them is running programs like this one. So we've been doing this for over 10 years now. We started as a co-working space in Edinburgh, and we had lots of tech startups and tech entrepreneurs that came and worked from our co-working space. And that built a community of people, like-minded people that were trying to push in the same direction. And that's expanded into a network of co-working spaces across Scotland, and a number of programs that we've run both across the UK and in Scotland as well. We've supported over 2,000 startups since we started, and some of our companies have raised collectively over $4.5 billion in total. So that's just companies that have either worked from our workspaces or been onto the programs that we run. Next slide, please. So it's a little bit about what we do. But what we are doing here is one of our programs in particular that's about getting these businesses to market successfully. So you might have heard that there's a stat that 95% of startups fail. There's some really common, easy to avoid mistakes in that sort of why startups fail bucket. And what we've done is designed a program around those common failure points for businesses that are rich in IP to support you to make less of those mistakes, or to stop earlier on if you are making those mistakes. So the program runs with the topics on the screen. So we start with sort of what is the tech startup landscape, and how do startups grow. And they can be slightly different to other types of businesses, and not like a service business or a physical product-based business, although some tech startups do have that physical product or hardware element to them. We work through this from a problem-focused lens. So what problem are you solving? And therefore, then how can you create value for the person or the people that experience that problem? What's the broader market that you're operating within? So what is that big global market opportunity? And how can you design for that market? And also look at adjacent markets that share the same problem statement. And looking at those customers within the market. So making sure that we work on a customer-led approach that starts with the customer problem first, and ensures that we're solving a real problem for them. So it may be that you've developed technology that you're looking for the right problem to start and enter the market with, and that's part of what we can explore through this customer market and problem segment. Then we work through experimentation and looking at sort of rapid iteration to make sure that we're not building something massive that doesn't have that use case for it, and then developing that product and looking at what an early product to market might look like, that MVP, minimal viable product, or we sometimes say minimum valuable product, to make sure that it's got significant value for that customer and end user. So as Nicole said, we've got a couple of phases here. So we'll be doing a bit pre-summer and a bit post-summer. So that's that early stuff, is the first and second phase, is that exploration and validation of that problem and product opportunity. And then as we move into the last phase for the program, which will be in September, we do that piece around taking that product to market, looking at earning money from customers who are experiencing the problem that you're solving. Commercializing that IP and protecting that IP. How can you leverage it in different ways? There might be more than one commercial opportunity for the product or IP that you're creating, and that's really interesting to explore through this approach that we follow. What does it look like to get funding in the space that you're in? And we do some bits here around operational future-proofing. So it's not just about IP protection, but about future-proofing the business that you're building around the IP and the product, and making sure that you're setting yourself up for success long-term and not making, again, some of those common mistakes that we've seen that can really trip people up. Looking at things like your cap table, if you're taking investment in, shareholder agreements, you know, all these different things that actually fundamentally could cause the business to fail later down the line. And as with any sort of product or investment focused business program, we look at pitching and proposal development. So we don't look at pitching necessarily in like what you might go to pitch events where they have this 9-slide sort of format that you have to follow and fit your story in. We look at it as how you tell your story to different audiences. So how can you really get across in either different timeframes or to different types of audiences the value that you offer them? It may be an investor, it may be a customer, it might even be a future employee. So it's about telling your story, about creating that excitement and passion, but doing it in a really clear way with a narrative that works for the audience that you're operating with. So we bring in different experts for each of these workshops. So we design the flow of it. Most of the team at Cobase have a background in building startups. So the design comes from that real lived experience. And then we bring in the experts in these spaces who have done it either as a founder, as an early team member, or as an expert in scale-ups, so that they're bringing that real lived experience from doing this for real, both successfully and unsuccessfully, because that can teach us a lot as well. And they build that. These will all be 2-hour workshops that take you through that from people who've been there and done it before. Next slide, please. Yeah, so those are the 10 2-hour sessions that are going to be split across 8 weeks. So through phase 1, phase 2, and phase 4, from May to June, and then from September for the final phase. Combination of workshops and panels. So we'll always have a workshop element, and then we'll bring in other founders who've got lived experience in these different areas to share their stories, and for you to ask lots of questions. Because the best thing you can do is talk to people who've tried it or done it successfully before, and then guest speakers with industry experience as well. We're also offering, as a part of that, through up to 3 one-hour mentorship sessions per company that will be on the programme, through that from the 7th of May to the 10th of September. So you can take those 3 sessions at any point during that time frame. We have more than 90 mentors on our mentorship books at the moment. And as I said, we work across the UK on a variety of different programs and different support opportunities. Mentors are people who have a lot of either industry experience or startup building experience, who've been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, and are able to guide you through through your experience by sharing the experiences they've had as well. So you'll be matched with the mentor who is the best fit for either the industry that you're aiming to break into, the market that you're working with, the type of technology you're using, or the problem that you're currently experiencing in getting this to market or growing this within the market. So they'll be matched based on those areas to make sure that you've got the person who can best support your journey. And then we finish with a showcase. It's always nice to celebrate the journey that you've been on, but also to see the thought processes that have changed through the programme and to see where you're headed next. So it'll be a place where you can pitch your progress to the cohort and with some of the ecosystem as well, and make connections and think about what that next step is for you. And that will be on the 10th of September, I think.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much, Shona. It's really interesting. It's great to have Cobase involved. I'd like to hand over to our team at the Real-Time Lab, Dr. Andrew McSwan and Simon Fraser, to talk a little bit about the offer from Real-Time. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Nicole. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. Just to give you a quick overview, a couple of minutes, there's a couple of slides. So where are we? We're up in Dundee, southeast Scotland, for anyone that hasn't been to Scotland. I came up in 2015, and I'm not Scottish, but I've been here since then. So the Real-Time Lab is situated over 2 sites. One is in Dundee, down by Water's Edge, and we're in a big complex building. It's an old dock building that houses 14 different gaming companies. So we're very much within the infrastructure of gaming. That's how Aberdeen University won the bid for this, to bring all that expertise. And we're also situated in Edinburgh, and that will be for the first part down at Leith, which is a big film studios already up and running, first stage. So we'll have 2 sites. Dundee is definitely games, but they're completely interchangeable. And Edinburgh, led by University of Edinburgh, is our partner, and their specialism is in AI and machine learning and how to use that ethically as well. So yeah, within the Water's Edge studio, we've got a 13-metre by 3-metre LED virtual production volume. That's the technical term for the screen, and with a motion capture facility up at Aberdeen as well. So the offers to industry are within all those expertise: virtual film production and games and AI. And as it says on the slide, to support companies developing their innovative, creative technologies for games, immersive and interactive. So it's film, TV, games and animation. That's our kind of area at the moment. Obviously, this call is for, creative tech companies. So don't feel limited just by that category. It could be that you're suitable for a different lab, or certainly within ours as well. Yes, the lab will also have a cloud by Amazon Web Services. This is all not yet, but this is in the pipeline, where the labs will actually connect via a cloud. And so there's a lot of discussion about 5G networking and GPU performance and all that lovely tech stuff. And I'm going to hand over to Simon now. If there's anything else you want to add, Simon.
I think what I'll add in here is think about the areas of expertise within both Aberdeen University and Edinburgh, and just think about what interesting, exciting, creative innovations that you can come up with that you would benefit from engaging with this technology and the expertise that we've got here. We're just really excited to see the kind of applications that come through. Short and sweet. And I am Scottish, so I'm the token Scottish one from there.
My DNA is 42% Northern Irish and 17% Scottish, so don't be fooled by the accent. I think that's everything from me, that little bit of personal info as well.
Lovely, thank you both. And speaking of Northern Ireland, I'd like to bring on Lindsay from Screen Lab.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay, and yeah, as you can hear, probably I am 100% Northern Irish, as is I think all of our Screen Lab team actually. We are located in Studio Ulster, which is a brand new virtual production studios located in the heart of Belfast. And it's leading the way in Europe and also world leading technologies in virtual production. The Screen Lab is located right in the heart of that facility, which is really exciting. It's situated right in industry. And at the Screen Lab, we have Professor Declan Keeney, who is director. We have 3 co-directors, each specialising in different areas. Professor Frank Lyons, who is currently working on our 5G project. Professor Karen Fleming, who specialises in EDI. Professor Paul Moore, which runs our SURF outreach programme, which helps bring virtual production technologies and to local youth organisations and people who might not otherwise get the chance to learn how to use systems like Unreal Engine, so that we can bring more people into the creative technology industries here in Northern Ireland. And then there's myself as project coordinator, and we're going to be bringing a full-time creative technologist and part-time admin officer onto our team very shortly. And you can go next slide, Nicole. Thank you. So at CoSTAR Screen Lab, the technologies and expertise that we have to offer is access to cutting edge technology, expertise in state-of-the-art production environments for companies that are developing innovative creative technologies for virtual production, immersive storytelling, next generation content creation across film, TV, animation, games. So there's a lot of scope there depending on your specialism. The Screen Lab offers world-class in-camera virtual effects technology and provides a unique environment integrated into a commercial virtual production complex for the development of tools and production pipelines that enhance real-time visual and virtual production technology. As you can see from our facilities there, if you are looking specifically what we have for you, we've got the R&D stage, we've got computing lab space, and then we've got a whole host of advanced technologies there, which will probably make more sense to you than it does to me. And we also have then a customized portable 5G private network, which is really exciting. I know Dr. Andrew McSwan was saying about a potential for 5G sort of cloud between all of the network labs. So 5G is a real exciting tool for connecting virtual production remotely, but also the labs themselves. And in terms of expertise, we will have our own dedicated creative technologist on site, as well as access to industry mentors and research expertise linked to 5G and 6G, virtual production, motion capture, and special effects. Next slide, Nicole. And then in terms of what we're looking for in terms of applications from industry, it could be any of these, but please, if you feel like Screen Lab suits, this doesn't have to be restrictive. It can be in-camera visual effects and virtual production, anything to do with LED panels or AI-assisted filmmaking. It can be to do with motion capture, motion controlled robots for virtual production, AI and machine learning, including gaming, as well as VP, serious gaming and interactive media, advanced audio technology, sustainability as well, which is a big focus of the whole CoSTAR program and particularly within Screen Lab. So if anything there excites you, if you feel like Screen Lab is the place for you, if you have something that's slightly out of that scope, of course, please ask and we'll make sure that you find a lab that suits you, whether it's Screen Lab or Real Time or any of the other labs available.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. Okay, so very quickly, some key dates for your diary. So as I mentioned, for applications close at 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday, the 24th of March. And as I said again, contracting will start and contacting of successful applicants will begin on Thursday, the 10th of April. If you are successful, the kickoff event will be on the 6th and 7th of May, and then sessions for the whole programme. Wednesdays in May for Codebase, June, July, August for the in-person development time in the CoSTAR Labs, Mondays and Wednesdays in September for the Codebase sessions, and Wednesday the 17th of September for the in-person showcase. And thank you all so much to our speakers. And now we'd love to hear from you. Any questions? I think I've seen a few coming in already in the chat. What I'll do is I'll stop screen sharing for now, and then we can see all your lovely faces. Please feel free to turn your cameras on as well.
It might be good to remind people the Q&A channel is when you're full screen. It's a little bubble at the top navigation bar. It's beside the chat function for me. It might look different for you. It's two bubbles with a question mark on it, and that's Q&A where you can post your questions. I've been picking up on a couple of questions, Nicole, as people have been asking them as well in the Q&A, but there's Daniel Hughes. Daniel, I don't know if you want to put your hand up and share your question, or would you like us to read it out? Go for it. Oh, okay. I shall read it out then. And unless you want, I think it's a really relevant question, actually. Does the CoSTAR network have, sorry, what if your tech, so there's two good questions here. One is from Terence Riley, which is what if your tech could fit or have use cases across multiple labs? And then I think the question for you is, where are you based? Accessibility for using a lab. We always like to think that when we talk about the growth lab and residency, you've got a primary host lab. And if there is very clear explicit needs and if what you're doing syncs with any of the priorities in other labs, we will facilitate conversations and dialogue with other labs and other expertise to ensure that you have some input. So there will be an element of cross collaboration, but you do need a host lab. And that question for you is sector, region, focus, the call to industry, what the lab has to offer, and the fit with what you want to do.
Lovely. So I see a couple of hands up as well. Peter, can I hand over to you if you've got a question?
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hello all. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Fiona, nice to see you. I have a question with regards facilities and in terms of over the duration during the summer, like how much of it can you actually use in terms, for example, I've got a upcoming TV show that's very much all shot to be in virtual production. And so how much access will we have to the facilities? Or will we? Could we?
I can pick that one up and please pop in Simon and Lindsay. I think we will all have a baseline of an offer of a minimum access per week to the labs. Each of the 4 labs will have 6 companies in each of their spaces. So they'll be rotated in on a weekly basis. So you will have weekly access. It'll be dependent on that lab as to what that looks like. Simon, if you might wanted to speak to what you've got planned.
Yeah, I think at the moment our idea is it's about 3-4 days over that full period, and then we would work with the companies that are being assigned to the different labs, whether it's Dundee or Edinburgh, to work with them to understand what works best for them, but also to fit that in, because this is part of a bigger project where there's R&D work going on in there, and there might be some commercial work going on in the spaces too. So it's something that we would then work with the companies that are based on the program to then understand what do they need, when do they need it, because it also needs to fit in. It might be that you need expertise, technical expertise linked to the use of that space as well. So whether that's academics or the tech side of it, then we'd work with the companies to make sure it's the right use.
And would you allow for that in the application, you know, where it like asks for choose your particular lab that you want? If you read through the proposal, would you base that decision as well? For example, let's say it's chosen the national lab and you think the real time's correct. Would you kind of come back and say, you know, we're suggesting this for you?
It could be an element of, I mean, we might ask the question to you, Peter. We might kind of dive in a bit deeper with you as to why, if the assessment panel and if the shortlist suggested a company was eligible to be considered, but it felt like there was a real better fit with another lab, we might go back and ask you, tell us in a bit more detail why specifically you've said that lab and have a conversation about it. It certainly doesn't exclude you. It would just be a really interesting conversation as to the fit, because you may not have explained to us to the level of depth you needed to in the application as to why one lab's better than another.
Cool. Just one quick final question. Across the applications, I can apply to the live labs, but also the other applications. I'm presuming you're going to pick one, or will that just be decided based on the applications? How would that work?
Yep, companies can apply to both calls. CoSTAR will have, as we get busier, and this is our first kind of month or two of being open, we will have multiple calls live at different times and different windows throughout the year. Every company is entitled to apply to all calls at any time. If we found a company was scoring really high in a number of calls that were all open at the same time, we would have a conversation with that company about, have you the capacity to deliver against these 3 programs should you be successful in 3? And again, it's another conversation about prioritization and fit around what the ambition of that company is and what is the right fit at the right time for where that company is in their growth journey. If that helps, Peter. It doesn't, bottom line is, but do apply for any call that is of interest to you. And multiple calls are absolutely fine.
Great. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. We'll go to our other hand up as well. John, are you happy to say your question out loud?
Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for inviting us onto this really interesting webinar. I have a similar question to Daniel Hughes, which was about the possibility of introducing innovators who have sympathetic ideas and needs. What I think that Daniel might have been saying is something similar to my position, which is that I don't have an actual company, and yet I am working on a very innovative project using AI production within my whole toolkit, and I mean I've sort of got sick of not being able to make it, so I'm starting to make it myself. So I'm in the early stages. What is there any sort of room within your, I mean, I understand it's business focused because that's where the money is aimed at, but is there any way to be able to put creatives and innovators together with companies? Is there a program to do that, or do I have to go and find a company in order to come to you?
I'm happy to take that, because that feels, hello John, how are you? That feels like a bigger CoSTAR question, and colleagues in labs pitch in. There are a myriad of different ways for companies to engage with the CoSTAR network. This is one program. If it's the development, if it's research and development, you need to support the development of a solution, John, a prototyping or piloting call would be probably a fast track way of doing that. If embedding within your skill set or a growing team skill set, the growth of a business in order to extend that IP further, build more IP on the back of it, and create a sustainable business at the end. If that's not the priority, then getting funding and support in just for the IP development feels it might be a better route. E&C program, enterprise and commercialization programs, our job is to take that value, to take you and your ambitions as a person within your company, to put those together to try and unlock and drive wider impact from what you're doing as an innovator. So that's the slight difference. And the answer to that will always come back down to what your immediate needs are within that lifetime of the program. Anybody else? Does Simon or Lindsay or anybody else anything to add to that? So, I mean, I would suggest, I mean, I think in terms of having, I think if what CoBase, if what we've set out in the program and what you can demonstrate what is of value, what would be of value to you around the business growth side, along with you saying the priority for right now for me is actually the IP development, that's totally justifiable within this program. We probably just would want you to articulate to us what's that fit for you and justifying that. If a single applicant, that's fine. But because if you look at the depth of the program, how have you got within your skill set what's needed and the time required to commit to the business dev side of things as well as the creative and tech development? And ordinarily, you would see 2 to 3 people needed across those specialisms to do it.
Thanks, Fiona. What I want to do very quickly, because we had quite a few questions come in via the chat during the presentations, I just want to make sure that we've covered them off. I know, Fiona, you were replying in real time to them. You've just kind of covered the top one, the first one of, does this only apply to companies with employees, not for solo developers? But as you just said, obviously making sure that if you are a solo, ensuring that you are capable of and feel that you are able to fulfill the requirements of the programme. How long does a company need to be incorporated to be eligible? I think, Fiona, are you able to kind of just answer on that one, please?
Where unlike Innovate UK or other grants in that regards, the selection criteria is be a legal entity. So that's fine. Doesn't have any duration attached.
Perfect. Thank you. And just making sure I've not missed any. Lovely. We'll just, Sam, I see your hand up as well, but I just want to quickly go over to some of the Q&A as well, just to make sure we're not ignoring that side. From Daniel Hughes, I'm just going to read some of these out. Can CodeBase or the labs provide a business address for a company?
We can't at CodeBase. That's not something we offer. It would have to be somewhere that you either pay to use as your workplace. So if you were paying to use our workplaces as a co-worker or some of our office space, then you would be able to, but not in general. No, not from CodeBase's side. Fiona, you were going to pick up.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Thanks for answering, Shona.
Yeah, just to add in on that one, as an aside, one of the things that I've seen a lot of the companies do is they use their professional services. It's their accountant, it's their solicitor that they use as their address. The issue being, especially with our lab, is that if you're in a co-working space in that time for a certain amount of time and you move away, then you can't have that as your registered legal address.
Yeah, Sam, I would just say because you're only going to be temporarily with us, then it wouldn't be possible.
Lovely, thank you. Daniel, I know, so John mentioned kind of related your questions together, but I don't know if you wanted to come in around your question on, does the CoSTAR network have the possibility of introducing innovators who have sympathetic ideas and needs?
So I've just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
No worries. Yeah.
Lovely. Yeah, it wasn't quite the same query. I was thinking more about introductions to people who have similar interests, who might get together to form companies, because quite a lot of the people who are going to be looking at this will be involved in research, which is quite it's individualizing by nature, and they're not necessarily going to be involved in a company already. Though someone like myself, I literally just started some research, but the research is highly related to a product I want to develop. And I know that that's going to need to build quite a substantial team eventually to achieve it. So in my case, I don't live where I'm doing research at the moment. I'm at Dundee at Abate doing research there. That's how I heard about this. So it would be difficult for me to find the people on the ground to build the team, to get the team started. I wonder if there's any kind of structures within CoSTAR or that you have access to that people could join, like forums or meetups, that kind of thing, quite simple things.
Just seeing as you've mentioned the Dundee and Abertay link there, we've got lots and lots of stuff on the go here. I mean, Codebase with their TechScaler program in Scotland, they run their Dundee Unfiltered meetings the first Wednesday of every month. So it was literally on this morning. We've got other tech meetups. There's data meetups. There's games meetups. So maybe what I want to do is I'll drop my email address in the chat there, and you can drop me an email and I'll send you a list of a lot of the things that are going on around here. But then if you also then let me know through that about where you're based, I can have a look and see if I've got any insights into those areas. So, but very much so, it's a big ecosystem, it's a network. It's about having these conversations to find those people that have shared experiences and the shared areas of interest, and then potentially trying to see if you can form something with them to go for something like this. But I'll put my email in the chat.
I can't seem to add anything to the chat for some reason, and I can't find the Q&A button like the other people in the chat either. But as Simon mentioned, the TechScaler. So TechScaler is the Scottish Government's platform for tech startups across Scotland. We're the custodians of that platform. We run mentorship, education programs, community events and activities all across Scotland, online and in person, so that it's accessible to all. So if you have a look, if you are based in Scotland, out of anyone here, and you're interested in being a part of the tech community in Scotland, then it's techscaler.co.uk. We've also got a community platform linked to that, so you can join the community platform and connect with other people across the country who are building interesting things. And then there'll be signposts there out to other things. You can ask other people for advice as well, and definitely come to Dundee Unfiltered. Lara and Kerry would love to have you along, and I know you'd meet lots of interesting people there as well. We have a monthly coffee morning, first Wednesday of the month, in every hub across Scotland: Aberdeen, Inverness, Dundee, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Stirling, and then we pop up across the south of Scotland in different places so that we can cover the breadth of that rural region as well. So yeah, we're everywhere in Scotland, so please do come and join us. We'd love to see you.
Thanks, Sharon. And I think it's worth saying as well, like the other labs as we grow and develop will be having networking events and opportunities to meet like-minded creative and technical people in your area. And I'm just going to go back to some of the hands that are up. Sam, can I pass over to you for your question, please?
Oh. Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm not very good at Teams.
That's all right.
Yeah, I've got a little chain of questions, if that's okay, because I think they're all related. So I did ask the question whether, so reading the application materials, it seems like envisages more technology products. I was thinking about IP more in a sense of creative content, and I'd just like to be clear on whether that's envisaged, or whether that would be something, whether that would come within CoSTAR at all, or whether it's something that would be a program further down the line. And then related to what somebody else has asked, the question about team. So often, kind of early stage companies, you might still be in the process of putting a team together, how much flexibility there is around that. And then relatedly, will these programs be repeated annually or something like that if we're not at that right stage yet to come along? So that's a little chain of 4 questions, if that's okay.
That's brilliant. I can pick up on the first one and please others. In terms of tech and content, if I've got that right, Sam, the focus of Ideate and all CoSTAR programs will be on the creation of IP, creative content solutions, and the technological, the tech side of things as well, whether that's building, kind of looking at work, and also looking at workflows and software and tools and the enablers of content and IP production. So there's no limit in that regards at all. And I think when we use the word product in this conversation is simply as a catch-all to IP solution experience whatever that might be.
Could I ask, sort of frame what what I've got in mind, and then maybe you can tell me if it fits in or not, because I'm still not sure. So I'm thinking about developing a sort of a game experience that would actually become the basis for like a larger kind of interactive format, if you like. So that's what I have in mind, but I'm aware that might fall, you know, closer to sort of you know, like a games accelerator or something like that. So that's what I'd like to be clear on.
Perfect. That sounds good. I think that's absolutely within scope, Sam.
Good, because I would have thought it wasn't. So it's a good job I checked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, and then you were going to come back on the other things.
And the other question was, Simon might pick. You look like you've got one you were going to respond to on there, Simon.
Yeah, I guess it's that bit about teams. And we're fully aware, and as Fiona's alluded to previously, there is that bit around about having enough resource to be able to take part in a full program like this. That's why I guess it's less for that single person, because that's a lot to be taken on, and you've got to obviously watch out for founder burnout in these kind of situations. Now, the people that are part of your team, now this is from my experience of working with many startups over the years, you can have people that you are fellow shareholders, directors in the company, but you can also have people that you've brought in because of those areas of expertise that they've got. It might be someone that you're contracting in at the beginning. It might be someone that you've got a hope that you bring them into the team further down the line. But you're looking to just be making sure that there's enough people to share that burden of workload as you're going through something like this. And that you're also making sure that you've got those sort of different areas of skill sets and expertise covered. But I wouldn't worry too much about that whole thing of, well, I've got a limited company and there are 3 directors and 3 shareholders, so those are the 3 that are taking part in it. It's about your startups. It's about that point of how are you getting to that point that you're looking to go to, but you may well be bootstrapping it at this point, and it's picking up the different grants and the right people at the right time as you're going through that process.
So sometimes it's easier to start a company than it is to find the right people. You just fill in a form on Companies House. So that's in hand. So the second part of my question then was whether these programs will be repeated if we're not quite at that stage yet.
Yes, they will be. We will have, even if it's not exactly the same shape as this program, everything we run on E&C programs, enterprise and commercialization programs, are designed at different stages, targeting companies at different stages of their growth cycle. So there will be something year on year at this early stage level, something for scaling companies, etc. That's the plan.
And is this the earliest stage that there will be?
Yes.
Lovely. Terence, I'd love to hand over to you. I've seen you've popped a couple of questions in the chat as well, if you want to come on to mic.
Yeah, no problem. Hi. So I would love to know especially around events, like whether live events before, during, or after, what sort of, do you help like companies like form partnerships, whether it would be more influential artists that they can't maybe get reached to, or brands, to help maximize and sort of build that credibility with the product? Because I'd love to be able to have like a video shoot of people interacting with art, multiple people, and seeing the collective outcome. But you have to put on a show, and you have to, sometimes need a bit of credibility boost from partnerships. Do you help with that?
I was going to point to Shona there in terms of how to handle that within, if you could pick that up.
Yeah, of course. Can you give me a bit more detail about your own? Is there something specific you're looking for?
Well, it's like, obviously we can have, it could be anybody. We can prove through video that people are interacting and changing the artwork over time. But to really hit it home, you sort of need that sort of more influential performance or performer or artists involved, either to create with the product. So it's difficult getting that reach when you're early started. The trust isn't there. they're busy, they're very busy artists and bits. Yeah, I was just wondering about, is there help and support on that side of things?
Yeah, so I mean, we get similar questions. We run a law tech program with the Ministry of Justice, and they're trying to get into big law firms across the UK, and they say the same sort of thing, in that the lawyers are all too busy and they don't want to test the tech because it's too risky for them. Because obviously, if something goes wrong, they can really sort of break the system there, and that's where it's about finding those early adopters. So these are all tactics that we'll talk about through, especially that go-to-market commercialization route. They're sort of slightly separate but similar, and it's building with your ideal customers and users in mind, and your users might be, in your example, those artists. So it's thinking about it in a slightly different way, and finding even just one person to test it with, to be that early adopter. We'll go through a lot of that in the program. Yeah,
and I understand there's building blocks. I was just curious if there was some support on that side of things.
Direct connections from us, probably not, but it's more about the tactics and the previous experiences of people that you can put into play to build towards that if you can't find that big one in the first place.
No, I'm all fine with emerging and different levels. It's just I was curious. Also, do you help? Another question is quickly. Do you help co-founders find technical founders at all, like within the network, or is that not? We sort of bring in our own.
We run some events at Codebase called Co-Founder Curious, because a lot of people are often looking for co-founders, and sometimes you can hear from investors that they prefer there to be more than one in the founding team. It's not always the case though, so don't take that as gospel. But so we work often with partners on running those sort of co-founder curious events that help you to meet with like-minded people, and people are always looking for technical co-founders. That tends to be the one that people are hunting for. So my recommendation is always networking. You'll find it from the network that you operate in, and so get out and talk to people. But let me see. I can't paste in the chat at the moment, but Billy can, so I'll send him some of the links that we can put in the chat for you, for some of the events that we run, or some of the people we work with. But it's not a service we provide, but we help to encourage people to meet.
And similarly, I think Lindsay and Simon and Andrea in their respective labs and networks will have their own unique networks and activities, and as a collective CoSTAR network, I mean, this is effectively month one really. We will be building pan-UK networking, face-to-face events, industry to industry, but also research to industry and customer buyer to industry. So that will all be emerging. It can't be delivered within the next 6 months. This is a big beast to deliver, but it's certainly part of the prioritization.
Brilliant. That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and say there, even with if you come to one of our labs for Ideate, there is the mentors as well that will be assigned, and that will be sort of bespoke to the companies that come onto the program. So certainly those mentors are a first step into maybe connections within the industry relevant to your company and your project, and of course they can maybe provide further connections as well.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Okay.
Thank you. I am conscious of time, but I don't want people to miss out on questions. So if people are able to stay on for a couple more minutes, I can see a few more hands up. Peter, can I just double check that your hand is still up from last time and not with a fresh question? I'll take silences. Oh, yeah.
It was actually up from the last time, but I do have a very quick question. Actually, it was just touching on Lindsay's last point. Across the labs, in our particular thing, one of the technical difficulties that we have is that each of our characters in the show are all very different. One's a puppet, one's drawn like Grand Theft Auto. They all have very different animation styles. And building a pipeline like that, few have done it. In fact, the only one in the animation space that I think has done it pretty well is Weta. And it was John Lennon's Son project last year as a short film at the Oscars. And it was all done in virtual production, but the animation was absolutely beautiful. And I'm just wondering, from a real-time perspective on that, is there more talent in a certain lab? Or is it more back to the kind of point you made earlier that it'll kind of be figured out in time, and everything's still new and it'll be yeah, working through everything at the moment, really.
I think you in your application you will be asked to cite a preferred host lab that you want to go with. So I think read through what is available at a real-time lab, what's available at Screen Lab. There is quite a bit of detail on our Ideate call page, and I'm sure Lindsay, Simon, Andrea, the teams will all be happy to have one-to-one detailed conversations if you need to dive into specifics before you press send on your application form. But you do need to cite a lab that you think would be best to work with, or a primary lab, but also you could indicate, I also think what's on offer in another lab would also be really beneficial. So don't, you can actually communicate that to us in your application. I think Simon and Andrea, that feels kind of quite real-timey in some ways. Don't know what you think. Could be Screen Lab. I think what we will also be doing is when we're looking at the portfolio of companies is coming, as I said, to I think a question earlier. This is a two-way conversation. We've no problem ringing up applicants and asking and getting clarification on these things at this point. We've tried to make the application form as really light touch as possible, to make it easier for you to apply in. But that we can have a conversation around that. And I would probably encourage you, Peter, before you apply, maybe to pick up with Simon, Andrea, Lindsay, and myself and Nicole more details on each lab to just better inform yourself before you apply.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Yeah, I wasn't sure with the National Lab because that was the prototyping bit that you touched on. So I was reading through a bit of them and they all felt a little familiar as to where we could go. So I'll follow up anyway. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Chris, can I pass to you with your hand up?
Yeah, I won't take too much time. I'm sure I'll probably discuss this more with Simon in the future, but it relates to dedicated space and lab time. Now, it says obviously a 5 months residency, but going by the pitch, there's a 3-month dedicated development time. It really comes down to how much time you really get in the lab, and I assume that's a little bit based on the size of the team, because when you're bootstrapping, as Simon put it, the highest cost is obviously facilities, and trying to develop something especially creative without space to do it is much harder.
Yeah, and hi Chris. So yeah, this is about the position or that time in a co-working space down in Flux in the Dundee one is based on having at least 2 months out of those 3 months in the co-working space. The co-working space is different to the lab space, and the lab space is then when we're talking 3-4 days available over that time as well. But as I mentioned before, it's about us working with the companies, finding out exactly what it is that they require. And there's obviously it's easier to get into a co-working desk space and having that available Monday to Friday full time, as opposed to having a week's worth of time in one of the labs with all the technology. So that's where we would then be working with our companies that are on there to work out what they actually need and then see what we can do to facilitate that.
Okay, I'll reach out to you and we'll probably have a deeper conversation.
Yep. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. I'm going to pass quickly to Gemma first because I saw you had your hand up before, and I saw it's just gone back up, so I just wanted to make sure chance to ask a question.
Hello there. Yeah, I apologise if this has come up before, but I was just wondering, you've mentioned sort of obviously across each lab there's kind of tech support of different types, and I was wondering if that specifically involves access to coders, maybe sort of specialist coders to help build certain things, or if that's more scope of a different competition.
Again, I think it probably depends the extent to which you need that support, because I think we'd ask the question, if you're building, when you're building your business, is this going to be a skill you plan to hire in the future, and you're using coding just to get some testing or some proof of the start of what a proof of concept might look like? We will have resource in our studio teams that can help to a certain extent, but if you need dedicated coding support solely on your project for the entire time of Ideate, that's not going to be feasible, because we can't second a team member to you to do that, Gemma. Please, Lindsay, others, if there's anything else from your side, please contribute.
Yeah, I think obviously we're in process of hiring in our full-time creative technologists, so I can't speak in terms of what their capabilities are going to be. It might be that they have some coding ability and can help, but of course they're not a dedicated to coding itself. So yeah, I think like Fiona said, if it's something that you feel for your business, you're going to need to be a skill throughout, it might be worth looking at that in terms of addition to your own team. But obviously we will try and support where we can. It might even be that if that's something, if you were to come to us and it's something we feel like you could benefit, we could maybe look in the form of a mentor. That's what I was saying earlier about the mentors will be sort of bespoke depending on which companies end up coming to us. So it's a possibility, depending on who ends up with us in the program.
Brilliant, thanks. Yeah, because I think, design my application either way. It's just a case of what to gear myself towards. Brilliant, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Gemma. And finally, I'll hand it over to Rhys as well.
Hiya. So I kind of represent a Scottish-based startup virtual production company. So with regards to the real-time lab, I know there's a lot of virtual production tech kind of on offer, but there's more just kind of little mention of it in the call sheet, particularly when compared to the other labs. It kind of focuses more on the game side of stuff and cloud-based things. So of course we're kind of looking to scale up our business and such, and a kind of core focus of that is Scottish-based productions, companies. So like I said, the Real Time Lab kind of stands out for that. I'm actually an Abertay alumni myself. I've met and spoke with Philip Vaughan quite a few times. I also, funnily enough, studied at Production Park, where the live lab is. So I know the CoSTAR team and the Explore guys down there. So pretty much my kind of concern there is of all the labs, the real-time lab, the one that would be in Scotland, which kind of aligns more with our thought process, feels like a bit of an outlier in terms specifically of virtual production. So does applying for that one make sense in my case, or is it more in line with something like the Screen Lab? And a second question I've got, would we kind of have access to the other companies that have the same sort of residency? So my background is in virtual production, so I've got quite a lot of specialist knowledge in that, which I would love to offer to those other companies who have that residency and such. So is that something that's possible?
So yeah, on you go, Andrea.
Maybe Simon and I can answer that. So yeah, we're a fully capable virtual production studio, and that's across both sites in Abertay, in Water's Edge, and also in Edinburgh. So what I would suggest is, apply. And as Fiona was mentioning, the team that are looking at all of that probably engage in a deeper conversation around that as well. But although the emphasis with the real-time lab, the history of it, I suppose, is through the gaming technology, and then with Edinburgh with AI, we are fully virtual production capable.
Brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're trying to show the ways that we can differentiate between the labs, but obviously there's underlying fundamentals. And so from your application point of view, is put forward the case about why you want to be in the Scottish ones, makes sense, but just really show about what this is going to do and bring to the business and letting you scale up. Play that story in there, and I think that's where you'll gain the best success.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. I am conscious of time, but if people do want to stay on for a couple more minutes, I'm just going to quickly read Sam's comment from the chat as it does link to that last question. How much flexibility is there in terms of location? Obviously, relocating to a different part of the country has significant associated costs.
I'm happy to pick up on that. The way that this funding through AHRC is structured, we're not structured to give money directly to companies to relocate to participate in our programs. We have a stipend for travel. If you choose to have a host lab that is significantly beyond your geographical capacity at the moment, you would need to consider how you're going to support yourself to do that. If you find that there's a host lab that is closer to you, but you would like to state in your application, you would like to, through that lab, build a deeper relationship with another lab, that's absolutely possible as well. But being completely transparent, we don't have costs to relocate companies to be beside labs. We do have a stipend to help you go visit, spend a day or two across the different labs around the UK.
Sam, yeah.
If I can just clarify what I meant there. So obviously I'm based in London. I moved to London in order to have access to these things. And now it's all being moved out of London, which is funny. But anyway, but no, I think so obviously, like, for example, for me, like the real-time lab might be more obvious, but there's 2 labs located near London. So if I could align my application with that, obviously that would make more sense. I wouldn't want to kind of, to be honest, probably if I had to go somewhere else in the country, I couldn't afford to do that. Yeah. So it's a question of like, you know, how much flexibility there is in kind of understanding that applicants might need to be somewhere where they've already got accommodation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are a CoSTAR network. You know, we're a network, and that's the kind of clue is in the name. We all work together. Before we'd even officially launched, our researchers and our teams are working across the network as a whole. That's the value of the CoSTAR network, and we'll be doing our best to allow companies to have access to that really unique offer of a coordinated network of infrastructure, and not just infrastructure, but the expertise within that infrastructure. So I think, you know, come and really test that. I invite you to come and test that as an offer, you know, from Network, because that will really help the network that's new learn to evolve and grow around that as an offer to industry.
And just on to Teresa's point as well previously about the cohort, we want to get that cohort to be working with each other. We want there'll be in-person events scattered throughout the program as well. We want you to learn from each other. That's where one of the cohort effects is fantastic, in terms of, here's a piece of expertise I have, there's one of my fellow cohort that doesn't know something, great, let's share some knowledge there. So I think that's where one of the major values is going to come from this as well.
Lovely. I will just come in on that as well, so that we are trying to make these programs as accessible as possible. We have an access bursary, which you are able to contact us about if that's of interest to you. But it looks like we are okay with questions for now. Thank you all so much for attending and for your time today. Thank you to our lovely speakers. If you've got any questions, you've got all our information that's been posted in the chat. We really look forward to reading your applications as they come in. Thank you all so much for your time and attention, and have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole, too.